Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever this video finds you, I hope you're having a rad time. I'm the Figure Dude, and on today's Work in Progress Wednesday, we've got the alpha male, Monty Brown. Without further ado, let's talk about some figures. Dude. Welcome back. Like I said, today I have the alpha male Monty Brown, as he was known in TNA, and then in his brief run in WWE, he was known as Marcus Corvon. He was in ECW, and unfortunately he had some weird circumstances happen outside of WWE, where he stepped away and just kind of, I don't think he ever really came back to wrestling. Nonetheless, when I did watch TNA quite a lot, like those late like the late 2000s, it was popping. They had AJ Styles coming up, Samoa Joe. They had there's so many, Christopher Daniels. Like, there was so many good things going for TNA then, and that is still like what I think of when I think of TNA, is those original people. And Monty Brown was one of those. I always thought he was really cool. He was one of my dad's favorites. My dad really enjoyed him. My dad watched a lot of TNA. And he's been on my list of guys I've wanted to make for quite a while. I just never really had the chance. I didn't really know what to use for a formula. So finally here, I've gotten okay at painting skin tones. So I'm going to use this Batista torso, or Batista's older figures use this torso, but this one is from a Sting figure, I believe. So I'm going to paint this torso. I've got some Booker T legs, and then we're just going to give him some black boots. So Apollo Crews is here. I'm going to take the boots from this Apollo Crews, swap them onto this figure, and then we've got to paint the torso. And then I'm going to paint this Jack's head, and then we're going to put him in red. So a little bit of painting to do today, which I always enjoy. I don't always do a ton of painting now, but when I get the opportunity, I have a lot of fun. So let's not waste any time. Let's get to it. Okay, so first off here, I am going to pop the upper thighs off, and I'm going to sand them down a little bit so that when the figure is all painted up, it's not chipping off. So I popped those off with the hair dryer, just pulled them off, pulled the legs apart, and then I am going to sand this crotch piece down again so that I can put some white paint on it, prime all of it. I mean, it's not primer, it's just white paint, but it'll make the red go on a little bit easier. And it's kind of chipped from when I made this custom a while ago with this Booker T. I just didn't love it, so I'm gonna redo that. And then mixing this brown skin tone, I don't do a lot of brown skin tones, so I have to experiment here a little bit, kind of see what works, and the end result, hopefully. So sometimes when you mix them, the skin tones will look good next, like you put that skin tone next to the figure and it looks spot on. When it dries, it isn't always the same, so I'm gonna have to mess around with that a little bit. This is a Jack's head, so dremeling it out to get it to fit is pretty easy. Gonna completely repaint this so it matches the torso, everything looks good together. And this is gonna take a few layers, so gonna keep going over this. I don't like to paint heads a lot. Like, I don't like to do a lot of layers on there. Same for the torso, just because the more layers, the thicker it is, and I want it on nice and smooth, so I'm going to try and limit how many layers I put on here, but just got to keep putting on layers slowly, make it nice and thin so that it goes on clean and isn't chipping off once we actually get to it. And then the crotch piece, simple red, not a huge deal. And you can see, like, it also, some of the brown, it might start out looking good, and the more layers you put on, the more, like, obviously the more you can tell how it's going to turn out as the final product. And I thought about like how I'm going to do the hair, so I am going to like completely repaint it, completely redo the fade on the hair. The crotch piece, I did a few more layers of red, so gonna get these decals ready to go. Nothing too hard. Gotta do the cheetah print on the side, and I did use a pen to like mark off where to cut for the hip, so I'm gonna use a couple pieces here, just the cheetah print down the side, and then we've got the lion head, or yeah, lion, I think. That is going to go in the middle, so I've got a cut for the hips there too. Same process as always with the decals, micro set, micro sole. If you want to like more in-depth look, I do have a video talking about how I apply my decals, and I do want to do another one soon because I've gotten better since then. So if you want to check that out, check it out. If you want to wait till I do the new one, it'll be coming here before too long. Here's our finished product. We have our Monty Brown or Marcus Corvon, whatever you please. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. The formula, sometimes, you know, before everything's painted and you get how you want to look, it looks different. And I'm happy with how this came out. I think this torso fits him really well. It's got that like kind of narrow, more narrow waist and that big upper body. And I think this should be used for more guys, honestly. My decals went on pretty well on the trunks. They line up pretty well here on the front and back. See, I had to cut a couple slices here just to give him that side. You can see the pounce on back. The boots, I used some calves from a Sami Zayn figure, maybe. I looked up like the reference pictures I had. A little bit had him with sleeves, like longer, like those black sleeves under his knee pads. Some didn't. I decided to go with this just to make it a little different. I didn't want to give him the real big like Booker T calves because he was like a big dude, but he wasn't like a super tall guy. The torso, so I do want to look at the head up close here. Pretty happy with how the head was painted. Happy with how the hair looks here. You know, just a real light fade. It's a little bit on top. The only issue I have is the skin tone matching. It's a little bit off, and I did kind of tinker with the mix a little bit because it looked spot on while it was in the tray while I was putting it on, and then it would dry and it was a little bit darker. So I do have to go back to the drawing board, mess around with it a little bit, and I don't know how well you can tell like on the screen looking at it here, but it is a little bit off. Not enough to where I'm like real upset, but at the same time I don't want to have miscolored torsos and parts. That's one thing that always bothers me with Mattel is like when they paint their torsos, they must go through the same thing as me where it looks good and then they put it on and it doesn't match. Like Chad Gable's figures, his torsos don't match the rest of the part choices because one is molded, one is painted, and I don't want that to happen. So I'll update it, but at the same time I didn't want to put a ton of layers on trying to match it while I was painting because I didn't want it to get like chalky, or I didn't want it chipping when I was articulating it. So today this is gonna work. Overall, I'm happy, excited to have him in my collection. I think what I'm going to do is start like a TNA shelf. Gonna make like Bobby Roode and James Storm, make a Beer Money Inc. Gonna make AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, like all of those big time TNA players during that run. I want them, or I could put him in my new breed ECW section, which is very limited, but at the same time, for me, it was a time I enjoyed during the Ruthless Aggression era. So that is going to wrap things up for today's Work in Progress Wednesday. If you like what you see here, go check out the playlist. So I've got a few more. And please continue to like, share, subscribe. I always appreciate it. Lastly, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy more action figures. Figure Dude out.